Hello and welcome to another tutorial on using 3D sculpting to learn anatomy. So we're doing the third of the middle ear bones today, the stapes or stirrup as it's called. This is what we're going to try and make. So we'll start off with a primitive cylinder and let's enlarge that, and I'll just hide my model. Now we'll start with the foot plate of the stapes, which is normally, so you want it to be elliptical like this a little bit, and then it's also a bit like a horseshoe shape, and it needs to be reasonably thin. So we'll thin it down a bit and then duplicate it. And use that to cut a piece out of the foot plate. So what you do is, if you want to cut something out of something, the bit that's doing the cutting, you want to make that invisible. And then simply, so we'll make this invisible and select that with the original piece that you want to do the cutting from, and then voxel merge them. And what will happen is the invisible part will cut out that segment, the overlapping segment, from the main piece. So there's our little horseshoe-shaped foot plate. Now we need we'll use a torus for this bit, which is the to make the crura, the anterior and posterior crus, as it were. Then we'll narrow it down a bit and rotate it so that it's sideways on and perpendicular. You want it to be quite straight on like that, yeah, that's it. And move it back a little bit so it's in the middle. Now it needs to be a little bit longer, so we need to stretch that up a bit. And we need to hollow it out. So in fact, I didn't do the hole properly, which is why we've got a solid structure, but that's all right. It's easy enough to just cut a piece out of it. This is how much sort of we want. We're going to just cut the bottom of that off. So just making it a little bit thicker. And then we just need to use the trim tool on the square to just cut that bottom bit off. That's it. And then we can use the ellipse tool to cut out the middle. Now, that's actually a solid structure, but our crura on the stapes is normally hollowed out. So we'll just have to subtract that again from the structure we have. So we'll duplicate it. And now, using the gizmo, we'll make that inner piece a little bit smaller, a tiny bit smaller, and then just pull it down a little bit maybe. Make it a little bit longer, yeah. And then, if we then make that invisible, we need to make that, yeah, we need to shorten the AP direction as well. Otherwise it'll be too thin. That's probably a bit better. So now if we make this this part invisible, and then select that with the other piece, with our main piece, and then voxel merge them, it'll subtract that inner bit. And you can see it's hollowed that inside out, and that's exactly the way the crura is shaped. Kind kind of hollowed out like that. It's probably a little bit long, I think, the stapes, but anyway, we'll just get a couple more primitives first. So we'll get a cylinder to make the head, and we'll need another one for the neck. So we'll just first of all enlarge the head enough and pull that up so it sits above, and then you can either duplicate it or get another primitive if you want, whichever, but we need to push that further back so it's right over the sort of the midline, as it were. And so I'm just duplicating it and then reducing the diameter and then just stretching it up a bit. And that'll do for the neck. So you just pull that up, and that's an okay fit for the neck, actually. So now we can put them all together, select all of them, and then voxel merge them. And that'll merge them into one piece. There we go. So we've got our stapes, more or less. But we'll start off by smoothing it over a bit. So we'll select the smooth tool and switch off symmetry, but switch on dynamic topology. And when you first start using it, it'll probably be a little bit scary because it makes everything a bit moth-eaten, but it'll work its way out. And the most important thing is it's repairing the mesh as we're going along. So we're going to do all these sharp edges with it. If it's a bit too much, then you just turn the intensity down a bit, turn the diameter down as well, the radius down a bit as well for the brush. I think that's going pretty well, that's all right. And run it around the neck and the head as well, just to smooth everything over, because generally everything is quite smooth. There's no sharp edges really on the actual ossicles, so that looks good. Except I think it's still it's still a little bit tall, a little bit big, so we'll just do a bit more smoothing and then we'll see if we can sort that bit out. So we'll use the move tool or the drag tool, whichever you prefer. I think that there's not much difference between them. And so what we'll do is we'll squash the head down a little bit. And pull the arches down a little bit as well. Just so that it just looks a bit more realistic. And just pull that head down a bit more as well. And that's pretty good. I mean, it's not the stapes is usually not absolutely symmetrical. Sometimes it just looks a little bit lopsided. Adds a sort of realistic element to it. And yeah, it needs to be a bit more sort of squat rather than tall and skinny. That's a much better. Much more sort of realistic, should I say? Not necessarily better, but realistic. Just smooth it down a little bit more again. just be careful because I think it's thinning down the crura quite a bit. So I just made that little dent at the top as well where the incus will articulate. So we'll colour it now. So maybe a, I don't know, nice bluish or greenish red sort of tinge will be good. There we go. And there we have our stapes. So now we've got all three osculars together. So I'm going to switch my other model on, and so it's a bit more beefy, that one. So if you want to, you could just beef up those crura a bit more. Although I think this one looks much more realistic than the other one. And then if we save everything, and then you can actually then import your other models and put them all together. And so you end up with this, all three bones. Now I've added a couple of tendons in there, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. But that's basically it for the osculars, and then we'll go on and make some other stuff, the middle ear, maybe some head and neck stuff as well, later on. And so there's our stapes with our stapedius tendon and the pyramid, and our malleus with the tensor tympani tendon. Those are the only two tendons I've added on this. There are a few other sort of things, ligaments and stuff that we can add later if we, when we have time. All right, so hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time for another sculpting video. And we might make the pinner next time. All right, take care, bye-bye.